Hello, welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With me are the writer and broadcaster Vicky Beeching and James Lyons, the deputy political editor of the Daily Mirror. Let's start with those front pages then. And it's with the I that we'll begin, which leads with the news that the Deputy Speaker, Nigel Evans, has denied the rape allegations made against him. The Telegraph says the government is preparing to crack down on state pensions being paid to people who live abroad and have never paid tax here. The Express leads on another miracle medical treatment, this time for arthritis. And it also claims that Monday will be the warmest day of the year so far. The Daily Mail has details of that horrific speedboat accident in Cornwall in which 2 people have died. And the FT says the EU is to clamp down on tax avoidance by wealthy individuals by forcing member countries to share information on individuals' investment income. The Guardian's lead is that the British government is in negotiations over compensation payments to Kenyans mistreated under British rule. And the Times says Tory backbench MPs have drawn up a 5-point plan to win back votes from UKIP, including scrapping the gay marriage bill. So let's begin with the I, and there is another picture, another day. Nigel Evans on the front page, this time claiming that those allegations of rape and sexual assault are completely false following weekend under arrest. Quite a bit of comment on different social media networks, Vicky, about whether this should even be covered at the moment, given an arrest has taken place.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the Twitter feed tonight, hasn't it? And different people reacting, saying they feel like too much is being said, that there's too much that might skew the kind of case itself, and the fact that the victims have to protect their anonymity. They don't get to have a whole day of media full of people saying what lovely people they are and how innocent they are. So it's just interesting the way that social media gets in the middle of all this, and just a lot of questions.
The social media also on Twitter also talking about the fact that he seems to have makeup on, covering a peculiar a scar or bruise on his forehead. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Well, this is something we did actually at the Mirror ask Mr. Evans about today, and we didn't get an answer. So it's going to remain a mystery. But yeah, there definitely seems to be some damage to his head there. And going back to Twitter again, there seems to be some comment about the fact that he's decided to wear jeans and a tie for his big statement today, or rather, should I say 2? Because he made one big statement today, and then he from a pub garden, and then he returned to the pub for a pint later on with some friends and made another one. But I don't know if that was planned or if that was more of an impromptu.
Does it give you any unease, though, that an arrest has been made? I mean, he's said that he's innocent. There are no charges, but a few years back, wouldn't we have been a bit more cautious? Not just newspapers, but not
for
just
many years. I don't.
Maybe we just were in the BBC. There was a time when an arrest was made.
Difference between the way broadcast approaches, but newspaper offices are filled with very expensive lawyers who try to keep us all on the right side of the line. And I think, as we were talking about earlier on, there is an important point here. The allegations need to be aired to see if anybody else is going to come forward, if there are any other victims. We've had the Stuart Hall case where the police said that the initial report was brought through a whole load of other cases, which ended up with him pleading guilty and sparing those victims in trial. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that that's what's going to happen in this case, but there's an important principle there. And you said that he's had a day of people saying lovely, wonderful things about him. I'm sure he'd have much rather not had a lovely day of people saying wonderful things about him. I'd much rather he had never broken in the first place, because he certainly had a pretty torrid time last night.
Yeah, it is interesting on social media. I do think people are more nervous, especially based on some of the lawsuits that are ongoing. I think there's a sort of nervousness. Yeah, and
well, that is the other thing. I mean, again, not in this case, but in some of the other cases, like the Stuart Hall case. Stuart Hall's lawyers, again, very expensive lawyers, used Leveson to try and keep his name out of the papers. And, there has been a chilling effect from the inquiry and from the report.
Yeah, people are definitely more gun-shy, I think, to discuss these things.
Let's look at the Mail and the lead story of the speedboat accident, which is still being investigated. It happened off Padstow Harbour earlier today, with a father and his daughter being killed and 4 other members of that family, 3 of them children, having to be taken to hospital. And we were just talking about the sheer scale of the response from the emergency services down there.
Yes, it's amazing how they've come together, different people sending in lifeboats and rescue services from all across that area of the coast. As I said earlier, I spent many a happy holiday near Padstow. It's a perfect location for it, so restful, and according to the National Rescue, they were saying that the water conditions were absolutely perfect. So just really, really, really sad. There's no reason for it seemingly so far, but again, as I said earlier, I love the fact that it said witnesses saw a man heroically leaping to the runaway boat from another craft, trying to prevent more people being hit. So even in a tragedy, there's a small ounce of hope of what good humanity can do in a crisis.
But the life-changing injuries that police have described, the people, those poor children, and then the woman, the 39-year-old woman who are in hospital, and happening on a weekend, went down there in Padstow. Beautiful weekend, lovely conditions, it appeared.
Like Vicky, I know the area pretty well myself. It is absolutely lovely spot, and what can you say about an incident so tragic and awful for that family?
Let's move on to the Financial Times. And Brussels boosting tax avoidance measures, stepping up efforts to clamp down on tax avoidance by wealthy investors, including private equity partners, by forcing all 27 EU states to share confidential data on individuals' investment income and capital gains. So Brussels taking a lead on this. I mean, is it because individual countries can't or won't do it for themselves?
Well, I think that this is one of those areas, as we were saying earlier on, where you really do need joint international action, and it's no good just trying to pull up the drawbridge and forget about it. And what's interesting is that the data sharing that's behind this, the attempt to sort of crack down on the people and companies hiding assets, has already enforced or already been agreed between Germany, France, Italy, ourselves and Spain. But what this does is it extends it to the other countries, including Ireland. I think there's some pretty big corporations working out of Ireland who we're probably all household names. I think Google do a lot of work there. There's currently a big row about exactly how much work Google do in Ireland and how much is done here in London, the implications that has for their tax bill.
Yeah, and sometimes funds are sort of siphoned through the Luxembourg or the Netherlands. It's all very
confusing, actually. I was checking Twitter in between the paper reviews, and people are also talking about that and their confusion, how they want to actually galvanise around boycotting different people, but they really don't know who to boycott or which of these companies are actually mainly to blame. We knew about Starbucks, but now it's just a plethora of different options, and people were tweeting
I'd love to know what's the situation with the Channel Islands, because here we're talking about EU members, but there we've got basically tax havens stuck between Britain and France.
Good point.
And I suspect that they won't be doing anything like this.
Let's look at the Guardian and this compensation payout. UK to pay compensation for imperial rule crimes. This is because of the 1950s Mau Mau insurgency. I mean, some of these people are incredibly elderly now, and they suffered horrific torture, didn't they? The government doesn't even contest that now, and it now looks as if the payouts could extend to more people.
It's quite sinister, because it says that a lot of the documents the Foreign Office had been hidden for decades, and they really shed new light on the dying days of British rule. So not only are we going to be making these payments, but it's also saying it will affect the way we look back at history, and that we're going to have to throw away our rose-tinted glasses about the kind of dying days of colonial rule and how we actually exited from these countries.
I'm not sure that some of us had particularly rose-tinted glasses.
I mean, if there were any rose-tinted glasses about giving people independence, those have now gone. That's what
it is worth making the point, as you are, that this isn't a sudden attack of conscience by the people who run the Foreign Office. This is because they've basically been found out, and there have been a lot of cases that they've lost. So they are going to have to make compensation payments. And as you were saying, Maxine, the point is, where does it end? I mean, there's a long imperial history in Britain. There'll be lots of other groups queuing up, I would have thought, to make similar claims.
Yes, the newspaper says towards the end of the article that historians and personal injury lawyers believe that there could be claims from individuals who were imprisoned in the 60s in what was Aden, which was one of our colonies and is now part of Yemen. But it does appear that there can't be any damages claims arising from events before 1954. There's a kind of a sort of a statute of limitations.
Yeah, they're saying up to 10,000 former prisoners may be in line. So, it just puts a really, really extra sinister edge. I mean, I don't think anything good of colonialism, but it does actually put a really, really
I'm sure you'll find some lawyer somewhere who wants to change that cut-off date.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be fought, won't it? Let's look at the Times. Tories tell Cameron to scrap gay marriage bill. Backbenchers fear more desertions to UKIP. Is this more fallout, James, from Thursday, from the election?
Will it never end? The answer is no to that, I don't think. Certainly not before the European elections next year. There's the group of Tory MPs who actually let's be fair, seem to quite enjoy UKIP doing so well. And quite enjoy using it as a big stick to beat David Cameron with, have come up with a 5-point plan which they claim can rescue the Tories. It seems to me that of the 5, at least 4 David Cameron is pretty actively pursuing, because they're mentioning taking Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Well, we've heard the Home Secretary talking about that. Doing more to cut immigration. Well, barely a day goes by without the ministers announcing some new innovation on immigration. Triggering a prompt EU referendum. Well, we've heard William Hague today talking about a draft referendum bill. Of course, the government can't actually do anything before the next election because of the Liberal Democrats. Freezing the aid budget. Well, I don't think it's going to go up. And
it's not really any rocket science, is it? All I can think of is Nigel Farage in the pub with his pint going, ha ha, look at them, you know, scrambling around because of me. And it's,
but it's
working.
The paper does make the point that if somebody, one of these people gets what the paper calls a plum slot in the ballot for private members' bills, then they can sort of crank the pressure up, can't they?
Absolutely. So this is, like you say, it's just an opportunity for those who are even more right-wing in the party to just grab UKIP and go, this is an excuse.
Wasn't it after Eastleigh that they said there'd be no leap to the right?
No lurch, that's it, no lurch to the right on the day they announced more measures on immigration. But I mean, the thing that sticks out there, the sort of thing that really is at odds with the Tory leadership, of course, is the scrapping of the gay marriage bill, which still drives...
David Cameron has wanted to see put through, hasn't he?
Absolutely,
he's really
he's championed it. Yeah. But you know, there's the whole stop the world, I want to get off tendency inside the Tory party, and which seems to dominate UKIP, who just don't seem to want to enter the modern world.
Two stories I'd like to look at on the Daily Telegraph if we can. Pay no tax, live abroad and get a UK pension. £410 million a year, apparently going to people who've never chipped in this country, but they still get something out. But they're spouses of people who have chipped in, aren't they?
So are they scroungers or not? Let's try and work it out. This is a great spin job on a bill that is actually not very good news for a lot of people that will be coming in unveiled this week. It's part of the same bit of legislation that will introduce the flat rate pension, which ministers have been banging on about as a massive boon to women and all sorts. But actually, when the IFS had a look at it, it turned out it's not so good at all. And in the long run, we'll all be poorer.
Women married to British men, but those women have never set foot in Britain, and they're claiming on their husband's record. This is going to play well again with some people, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you think about, you know, the way it could be spun by a certain person, you know, possibly working for UKIP. You know, these people who live far away and they're not part of our community, and they're, you know, claiming money via someone else. I mean, it partly has a spin on it that makes you think this isn't fair. You know, it's yet more of our money going elsewhere. And I can, you know, empathise with it a little bit. I think I'm not entirely sure that it's the way it should be. You know, as a single person.
But if you're just a spouse, does it matter where you live if you're entitled to it because your spouse?
You made a good point earlier. You know, that actually they're saving us money by being out of the country.
They might come back. You never know. They might come back. The weather carries on. Custard creams could shrink as waistlines expand.
A much happier story.
Go on, tell us about this story. Just quickly.
Happier. So basically...
I don't think it is.
Well,
you can't be a biscuit lover.
Lighter. I'm a biscuit lover, but basically this is saying that there are plans to reduce the fat intake in the nation's diet, and apparently ministers have come up with a great idea, which makes me chuckle, that actually we should reduce portion sizes, so basically make biscuits smaller. And the fear obviously is that people will just eat more biscuits.
Of course you do, you eat twice as many.
Or people will charge you the same amount of money for the packet of biscuits that are smaller. So
there's also a very important health and safety issue. How do you dunk them if they're small?
They'll just break off, won't they? They'll be gone in seconds. Classy, James, I like that.
They have actually got smaller too. I'm certain that biscuits have got smaller since I was little.
We're just hungrier, maybe. That's it for the papers this hour. Thank you to Vicky and to James for coming in. It's lovely to see you both. Stay with us here on BBC News. Coming up next, the film review.